Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Are we good to go? We are thumbs up. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Ridgecrest City Council. We'll go ahead and begin our meeting by calling it to order. Roll call.
Mayor Bruin.
Here.
Mr. Blades.
Present.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Present.
Mr. Heyman.
Present.
Mr. Gorman.
Here.
5 present. We have a quorum.
Okay, first item on our agenda is approval of our agenda for this evening. Do I have any changes, or do I have a motion to approve as presented?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second. Roll call.
Let's vote with the machines, please.
Oh, machine. Did I do that? No.
It's a learning
Didn't
curve
hit
for
it
Skip
hard
again.
enough. There.
Unanimous, motion carries.
Okay, next is our closed session. We have 3 items on our closed session this evening. Conference with legal counsel for anticipated litigation, 2 cases. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Mojave Pistachios versus Indian Wells Valley Water District et al. And California Government Code Section Subpart Public Employee Performance Evaluation for our city attorney. Is there any public comment on any closed session item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn into closed session. We'll resume our normal session at 6 p.m. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will call the meeting back into session, and we'll go ahead and begin with our regular session. If I can ask everyone to please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a scout here. Would you mind leading us, sir? To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Councilman Rajaratnam.
Please join me in prayer if you would. Lord, thank you for this day. Lord, thank you for the blessings you have poured on this community, Lord. Lord, I pray for our country, the country's leadership, give them your direction so that this country be a beacon of hope for many other countries, Lord. Pray for your peace in the Middle East as well as in the Ukraine area, Lord. Lord, I pray for our police department. Lord, protect them as they protect this community. Lord, bless this council. Lord, as we discuss many issues which are important to this community, give us your wisdom so that we make the right decisions which are beneficial to this community, Lord. Lord, bless each one of us here. In Jesus' precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, first thing on our agenda this evening is our attorney's report out of closed session. City Attorney.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, council members. The only reportable action from the closed session this evening was that unanimously the council rejected the claim of Mr. Ocampo. A letter will be memorializing that will be sent to their attorney. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item on our agenda is we don't have any presentations today. So it will be public comment of items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Council will not respond to any public comments, but may provide direction to staff to collect information. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the city council may not act on item that does not appear on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name, and we'll begin with comments from the floor. Is there any public comment from the floor?
Yes.
Hello, how are you? My name is Robert Blackwell, and I've been here the last 2 weeks, but last time I didn't have enough time to finish, so I thought I'd finish up. I would like to present these. What I'm presenting is 5 maps that are the maps from the state of California, the interactive maps that represent the Kauai Sioux recognized territory. Over the last couple of weeks, I've heard things that from the city council that sometimes they never heard of the Quiasu. But the city of Ridgecrest is in the middle of the Quiasu territory. There's no question about that. The tribe and its chairman have been recognized in federal litigation to represent the tribe. So one of the important things as we move forward in this kind of informational and protest stage, I want everybody to have the same information that we are looking at. The map that you looked at is the smallest map of territory of the Quiasu. Many of the maps are 3 or 4 times larger, but there's not one map that I've seen, and I've looked at maybe 50, all right, that the Quiasu tribe is not right in the middle of Ridgecrest. So I just want to put that to bed. You know, if you guys don't want to admit it, that's fine, but it's recognized by the state of California. What I just presented to the mayor, and then copies of an email link that all the other council members can look at, is an article that was originally written in 2014, and it dealt with a lot of the native objections to the Petroglyph Festival. Those are the same objections that have resurfaced. The major difference is the Quiasu tribe was not involved in those protests at that time. And you know, since it's their territory and they've taken up this issue, it's something that will be pursued. And more importantly, what the article does is it's 20 pages long with pictures. It gives an absolutely wonderful description of the issues. If people want to deny the issues and the fact that a lot of the art in the city is insulting, that's fine. But the native members of the Quiasu tribe are going to pursue these issues, and that's pretty much it. There is a short preamble, not a preamble, I guess kind of summary statement, which the original author reached out to me, and I basically drafted kind of a summary of the reaction to the protest that we held at the festival. And again, as I've said before, the reaction of the community, all the other native tribes, the museum, the festival, the I guess it's the Economic Development Center over near Stater Brothers, was all positive, and the only real negative reaction I've gotten is from the city council. So with that, we are going to pursue what we're going to pursue, and since it does not appear that the city is really interested in working with the natives on these issues, we'll see each other when we see each other. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, public comment of items not on the agenda.
Good evening. My name is Robert Catlin. Been coming down here for over 30 years to the city council. My family got here 120.
Can you speak
I'm
into the
sorry.
microphone just so we can
I'm
make sure we
sorry.
hear you?
Just
Thank
So
you.
everybody can hear you.
Sure.
YouTube.
My name is Robert Catlin, and I've been coming down here for almost 30 years. I've owned a business in this community for 25 years. And we had some problems last Friday night. Did you guys know the park was closed last Friday night?
I know that the park was closed.
You did? Okay. Kind of like to know what the policy and procedure is on that, and to find out how it can be closed. And there was an incident, we'll unfold here later with you folks, but I came down to the police department and I asked, do we have any body cam? No. Does the cameras work out there? No. The question is, why don't we have body cam? Why don't we have some type of something to protect the community and law enforcement? As an ex-law enforcement officer, I wouldn't work for an agency that did not have body cams. Why the camera's not working over there, I don't know. My grandson was given an unlawful order to leave the skate park, which he did. He went out on the sidewalk and then was thrown down by one officer, and then jumped on by another officer, which is all on the videotape, and I've turned the videotape over to the police department already. An unlawful order given to close the park. You can't just close the park. How are we going to do that? How are we going to tell the kids? When the police left, was there anything to say that park was closed, or was it open now? My grandson was not the reason why the police department showed up at that park. He broke no laws, and yet he paid the price. And then in the infinite wisdom of Ridgecrest Police Department, they sent my grandson to Laredo on a PC-148, a cite and release. They put our kids in Laredo. That's wrong. So my question is also is, what kind of training does all law enforcement have for at-risk and children that are on the spectrum? Do we have to put a little tag around our kids' neck and say what their disabilities are? Or are we going to have bullies come up and throw them on the ground? Like I said, we have video on all this, and that will unfold later. But I just wanted you guys to know what was going on in our community, my community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment from the floor? Seeing none, I believe we have public comment on the phones. Caller, go ahead.
Yes. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Yes, this is persons unknown. According to the Brand Act, I choose not to identify myself tonight, but you guys all know who I am. So, first subject, the use of Placer AI by the city. We had a small amount of discussion about that a few months back, and so here's some facts. The city so far has provided 6 instances of use of Placer AI to Bruin's good buddy Chip Holloway out at the fairground. They provided 2 uses to the Matarango Days group. They have provided 1 use to the Welcome Center, and then they had 2 uses for the petroglyph-related festival, which, of course, depending on how it was used, could have been a lot of use to the numerous vendors out at the Petroglyph Festival. However, what's interesting is to have that kind of data. When I asked for records that they had as to the amount of staff hours expended for performing these Placer AI searches or any charges to these various groups for their specific use of Placer AI, which is supposed to be city software and not public software, there were apparently no charges to any of these groups. So we've already got a lot of use of groups that they're not the city, they're not city staff, and yet they're being provided apparently free of charge. If the fair for number one, a lot of use of Placer AI for its own benefit. Now, there's another thing nobody's ever thought of. None of you have certainly thought of it, or if you did, you didn't want to mention it. In about 6 months, we have campaign season coming along. Now, it became apparent that Mayor Bruin recently, right after the last Christmas tree event, made some use of Placer AI because he was able to place a specific number on how many people came to the event. And I know he did go around counting heads all night long. So if City Council is able to make free use of Placer AI, and any of them are running for a position as mayor or city council, they need to make aware and make available to any council candidate who wants to also make use of Placer AI, because you can gather a lot of really good demographic information from that software. That's why you bought it. Use that, or you should pass a resolution or even add to the municipal code and ban specifically council members themselves from using Placer AI, one of the two. And I'll be sure that anybody who runs for city council or mayor understands that they should have access to this software. So take care of yourself and don't make me have to look like I'm only a guy trying to help you get it right on this. As far as the annexation of the hospital, There are a lot of questions about that. There's a press release put out that says that they had an agreement with the hospital between now and the EKHCD to incorporate the hospital into the boundaries of the EKHCD, which is not really well defined. It also meant talks like, if LAFCO approves it, that the annexation will be done. What probably almost everybody, certainly not myself until today, understands is that when we become part of this district, we could also be taxed through our property tax to support it. And it could be considerable. It could be several $100 a month. But we don't know that. The problematic thing that I see first off is, who gets to vote on becoming part of this district? Do we just get to get put into it simply because the hospital and the EKHCD make an agreement between themselves? At present, this group is composed of about 3 medical facilities, has a 4-person board that haven't bothered to fill their 5th position. 2 of them are husband and wife. They're all based out of Cal City. You could locate them within about 150 square yards of each other between them and the medical facilities they represent. And they're going to all of a sudden get a big, big hand in running our hospital for us. There's a lot of stuff we need to know. And I seem to think that possibly the city council might want their people to understand this stuff before we get put in a position that's going to surprise us all. So I suggest you have a town hall and you invite spokesmen from the hospital and any other organization that needs to be in on it and get the people well informed about this instead of just reading press releases, which were put out on December the 6th, bragging about how wonderful this was going to be for the town. That is all.
Okay, are there any other callers on the phone? Seeing none. Any other callers from the floor? Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to our next item on our agenda. Sorry, let me move some papers here. So next item on our agenda is our council announcements or direction. Does anybody have any council announcements or direction for staff? Skip. Doc?
None. No, but we had a few public comments I just wanted to make a comment back on, if that's okay, and I'll try not to be too long-winded. The first thing is, since about, when I first got appointed in 2019, I started asking a lot of questions about police body cams. It was a hot topic then, and I think that at least my limited research is that the cost to the city would be exponential. Now it's a long conversation, and I could tell you that depending on the police officer and the law enforcement agency that you talk to, whether it's a plus or a minus, but just to put a fine point on it, the cost just to manage the data that gets saved is enormous. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because we're just getting close to being better, to having our PD staff the way it is. I can't imagine us incurring that kind of cost on top of trying to pay officers what they deserve and to retain them. And the next thing is just about the hospital situation. I think that just plain and simple, we do need to understand more, and I don't think there's a whole lot more that we can say or do about it. We just need to understand more, and hopefully we can delve into that in the future. That's all I have.
I don't have a whole lot else other than to reiterate that I do know that the body cam issue is an extraordinary expense, and we have been focused on making sure that we have the people and the bodies out on the streets and making sure that we had our staffing shored up and taken care of as our first priority. And I reiterate what Mr. Blade said, that the amount of time and effort that it's going to take is going to require a lot of fiscal discussion. Next on our agenda is our consent calendar. All items on the consent are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or audience wishes to have the item pulled. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and will be considered in listed sequence, with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the city council concerning the item before action is taken. I'll now read the 2 consent items. The first one is proposed action to approve draft minutes of the Ridgecrest City Council regular meeting dated December 6, 2023. And the second item is to review and approve recognized obligation payment schedule for ROPS for 24-25 and administrative budget for fiscal year 24-25 of the successor agency to the Ridgecrest Redevelopment Agency and approval of resolution. Do any members of the council wish to have an item pulled? Hearing none, does any member of the public wish to have an item pulled? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval of the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second.
Please vote. Five ayes, motion carries.
Okay, we will now enter into our regular discussion and action items. The first item is item number 3. This is the discussion regarding the board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. Mr. Heyman.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Groundwater Authority did meet last Wednesday on the 13th of December, and I will give you the highlights of each of the agenda items. So beginning with agenda item 9 pertained to the 2024 board rotation. And so the past couple of years, under advice of council, the Indian Wells Valley Water District has recused itself from participating in certain topics before the board. They were set to become the vice chair on this next rotation. Given the current court proceedings, full participation of the chair and the vice chair is important, and it was felt that the in best order the board was to continue to skip the water district and the chair position. So the board voted to approve skipping the water district on this rotation. Moving on to item number 10. This pertained to the renewal of contract with Regional Government Services, or what we refer to as RGS. And so basically it's a contract renewal with regards to the overall administration costs for the year. The staff projected that the RGS cost of the 2024 budget of $340,000 compared to $333,000 for the past 2 years. Should be noted that actual expenses for 2023 were projected to fall just under that budget amount. So the contract is very close in finance numbers to what it's been, with just a slight increase. And the board approved renewal of the contract with RGS for the year of 2024. Item number, item number 11 pertains to the contract amendment with Capital Corps and the 2023 budget adjustment and 2024 scope of work. So over the course of the year 2023, action items not contemplated within the 2023 scope of work arose and required immediate attention by Capital Corps. Specifically, the legislation with the groundwater adjudication pertaining to AB 560 and AB 779. This legislation would have prohibited the Groundwater Authority from purchasing needed imported water supplies. And also the preparation of an unanticipated $25 million state budget request were within the scope of the work, but beyond Capital Corps' ability to anticipate when developing the 2023 budget. So basically, they had to go kind of sidetrack themselves and work on that legislation, which was extremely important to the Groundwater Authority and to the city and this community. And so the additional cost would be $22,000 above and beyond what was normally slated for their budget for the year. Just want to make a note that Capital Corps had notified the GA in November about this additional cost incurred, and so it was not something that we were not aware of it happening. So. Additionally, the Capital Corps previously submitted a proposed 2024 work plan, and their budget of $204,950 for 2024 activities, which is a slight increase over the previous years. But again, that recognizes the heavy legislative activity anticipated to solicit project funding and address the ongoing state legislative matters. So that, again, was approved by the board. And next, we have budget amendments for 2023, and basically this pertained to following additions, amendments that were proposed to reflect the board authorized actions and operating changes throughout the year. And it consisted of a new fund, create an urban community drought relief fund, and then some amendments to the budget that pertain to reimbursement of the IP grant expenditures. Augmentation fees were down, and so with that, the loan between the augmentation fund and the extraction fund was off, and so basically it's tying up the budget through the year. It was approved by the board unanimously. And next, we have item number 13. Basically, let's see, it's Resolution 0923, General Manager Authorization to execute BLM permitting documents. So the GA was granted a right-of-way by the Bureau of Land Management to construct 2 groundwater monitoring wells up in the Rose Valley area. One of those wells has been completed. The other one ran into some trouble when they hit some fracture. I guess that's what they determine or describe as a, how they word it here, well, drilling in a fracture zone, but they hit a lot of rock and were unable to successfully drill that well. So they had to come up with another relocate to another area to drill the second well. But in doing so, that BLM requires the Groundwater Authority to submit a SF-299 form to drill the alternative well site. And BLM requires a document authorizing the general manager to sign the BLM permitting documents on behalf of the GA. So basically, this was just giving the general manager authorization to sign those documents with the BLM. So pretty straightforward. I'll talk a little bit more about those wells in the Rose Valley in the general or the Water Resource Manager's report. And item number 14, Stetson staff rate increase. Stetson is our water resource managers or water resource manager for the GA. So they are currently have put in for a rate increase. Let's see. Bottom line is the rate increase is very similar to what we saw in 2019. I just want to say that Stetson has been very good about carrying their rates with the GA for a year or a couple of years or even longer without raising the rates. When they do raise their rates, it's at a very nominal amount, and so we appreciate that greatly. The board approved their rate increase for the year 2024, and if it's like the last 2 rate increases, we probably won't see another rate increase off of that for a couple more years, but and I think that pretty much covered all the agenda items. I'll move into the Water Resource Manager's report. Not a whole lot there, but covered a little bit about the imported water project. So work still continues on that with Provost and Pritchard. Shallow well mitigation, currently in the process of working on 2 applicants. They've received the well drillers report, and they'll put together a staff report and then bring that back to the board for review. And then the annual report for 2023 is currently in final internal review and expect to be released to the public by mid-December. And following that, there'll be a review period for 30 days, and then the annual report will go off to DWR. Let's see, data collection and monitoring. That's where, so the subflow from Rose Valley. So drilling's anticipated from that new well in beginning of 2024, so hopefully we'll get the second well in. And then with that, they're looking at monitoring the water level, or not the water level changes, but the actual flow that may be coming out of Rose Valley. So, and then the LADWP water or emergency water releases. I think everybody knows that DWP released quite a bit of water out of their lines this year into the basin, totaled out to about 12,592 acre feet. And so currently they're looking at the water level changes, monitoring, and any data that could be gleaned from that extra water that was dumped into the basin. And so with that, I believe that's pretty much concludes the meeting. So I'll bring it back. I will say, well, before I bring it back to the board, but there was quite a bit of discussion in amongst the meeting on a couple of occasions on the new data that was press release that was put out by the Water District. And so I think it was pretty clear from the board that we welcome that data. So at this point in time, we don't have any data from the Water District. So in the event that they are willing to release it, we're more than happy to look at that data and see if there's any validity and how it would play into the GSP.
Yeah, that's a good point. I watched the meeting. I'm glad you guys said that, because it's a complicated basin. I mean, I think any data we've even gotten up until this point has all been, there's been issues with it somewhere. So I think that the more data we gather, the better. Of course, this is that type of a community, right? We all want to see more data. So we could probably more data for the next 30, 40 years. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And hopefully that plays directly into the update to the GSP, which I think is coming, right, over the next couple of years.
Correct.
Right. So should there be new data and it looks, however it looks, is that going to be analyzed by the Groundwater Authority? Was that Stetson?
Well, I'm sure any data that would be released that's valid would definitely be looked at by the GA.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other council comments? Are there any public comments from the floor? Seeing none, I believe we have one caller. Caller, go ahead. Are there any public comments?
Hello?
Hello, caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is persons unknown again, according to the Brown Act. What I have to say about statements about the study is it's a good thing to hear that now at this point in time, Mr. Heyman is not just kind of pushing it aside like he did in a previous meeting, just dismissing it, saying, oh, that's old data. Well, let me refresh your minds and the public minds on how old the data is the Water District is referring to. If you recall, there was a company called Ramball who did a air flight electromagnetic measurement of the water in the basin. They did a complete measurement of the entire basin. That study, that measurement was done about 2 years ago. So if you want to go 2 years ago old, I guess you can do that. That's entirely a different approach above and beyond anything else that we've ever had available to measure the water in the storage in this basin in any time in the past. It was verified against monitoring wells that, you knew what the depth of the water was. At certain points, they flew over them and used that as their metric standard to make sure they were getting their numbers right. I thoroughly understand this technology, and I know its limitations, but I also know that it can give you such a much more improved look at the water that it would be like, probing around on the outside and feeling your kidney and going and getting an MRI of it to see what's going on. There's that much difference. Now, let's hope that the GA will actually look at the data without a prejudiced eye, because they have strictly held to the Gleason doctrine, which was in place day one, and they've held to that since then, and don't seem to want to turn loose of, we have, less than 8,000 acre feet per year of safe yield, and we have to restrict everybody's use. Well, I've told the Water District flat out, especially recently, they need to leave the GA, and they need to quit paying the replenishment fees, because I think it's pretty obvious right now there's no need for that. There's certainly a big, like 85% chance that there's no need for that. But of course, the GA is going to stick to their guns. And so let's not hear any more of this kind of blame the Water District for trying to relieve the citizens of this financial burden that the GA has placed on our heads, which is to the tune of over $13 million out of Water District customers' pockets over the last 6 years. Let's have a little straightforward, honest approach and look at data that's available instead of sticking to the old railroad track and going blindly down the tunnel. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Don't worry. Is there any other public comment on the phones? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to council. Any other council comments?
I'd like to make a couple more comments. So one thing I want to be very clear about is that, I'll quote our water resource manager, Steve Johnson, at the last meeting, that in regards to the Indian Wells Valley Water District, a press release on new data, his door as water resource manager is open and welcomes the presented new data. There are individuals behind the new data that were part of the GA technical committee. Anyone can come up with different numbers, but until they present the data, we aren't putting anything behind it. And I want to make it clear that while people will come up and tout this press release, there is nothing behind it. There is no data release to substantiate what is being presented to the public. The water district, when I refer to old data, old news, well, I will say that, the data, if there is new data, then I will accept that. The news is old news because the water district, in a meeting that Councilman Blades, who is he was part of the Groundwater Authority with myself, City Manager Ron Strand, we met with the general manager at the time, Don Zadiba, Mallory Boyd, and Chuck Griffin. And this was approximately a year and a half ago, and they were touting that they had this new data. We're going to have something big to share with you by the summer, which we never saw. Months and months go by. We continue to hear this, and the number of 13,000 has been a number that's been tossed around for numerous times in the years past. So in a lot of regards, this is old news, but I welcome, like I said, if they have something substantive behind it, then let's bring it to the table. You got to remember the water district is the one who filed the adjudication and is suing everybody in this basin. And now they have this data, which now they can't release because of litigation, and they don't want to. They can't release it because of the litigation, which they brought upon themselves. So. It's pretty open and clear that the GA is working to provide solutions to the chronic water overdraft that we have in this basin, and we want to do that in the best with the best and clearest science and data. And why anybody that would sit on the board of the GA as a member have data that they don't want to share, that would, if the claims that they make are true, would actually help to benefit this valley, is beyond my understanding. So I want everybody here understand it. When you hear these people come out and talk about this new data, have an open mind, listen who's saying it, listen who's behind it, and know that you don't have anything to substantiate it at this point in time. When we do, then we'll go from there.
Well, Scott, so from the Groundwater Authority's perspective, so maybe I missed it in the meeting, or maybe you guys have talked about it in other meetings, with the overdraft such as it is, if those numbers are substantiated by good data, where are we sitting then? We're still in overdraft, right? And we're still not where we need to be.
I think it's clear in the numbers and the math that if you look at the amount of overdraft that we're in, you look at the amount of recharge that we have at the 7650, we're in terrible overdraft. If you look at the number of 13,000 and some change, then we're still in a pickle. Yeah, doesn't solve the solution for the long-term benefit of the valley.
Yeah, if I'm correct, number we're somewhere in the range of 28,000 in usage. Correct? Is that if I remember correctly?
I think you're pretty close on that.
Yeah, so even if 7 became 13, we're still overdrafting twice the recharge rate regardless. And, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm going to let you finish your comments.
No, you're not cutting me off at all. No, you're fine.
I have a strong, I think it's very contradictory when somebody says to not go down a road blindly when they have no report. Seems like an interesting contradiction in terms to not go down a road blindly, but yes, I'm going to blindly take a press release from a media company as gospel. It's okay. Everyone's got their own opinion. But the simple fact is that all of the reporting about this, and I encourage those people to go back and watch the GA meeting, who commissioned the report was not disclosed until pressed. Whether the report would be released was denied until pressed. Who was the nature and cause of the people who created the report has not been disclosed until pressed. This is a press release for political purposes in lawsuits, people. I hope the data comes back to show information that's good for the community.
Correct.
But even if it comes back and shows 13,000, we are still using twice as much water as comes into this community, thanks to the extraordinarily heavy use of agriculture. I don't know why that fact is so lost on people, but you have 3/4 of our water usage is agriculture. The total water usage of the city of Ridgecrest, the basin, the surrounding community, if you exclude agriculture, agriculture is using 3 times the total water usage of the entire city.
The basin,
The basin.
the
of
county,
basin.
the city, the county.
Yeah.
All the small pumpers, Trona,
Trona,
and Inyokern.
1/3. Guys, the problem, we can argue over press releases, we can debate numbers, all of it will be welcomed. And we encourage the Water District to certainly provide that information so that we can all have a fair assessment of it.
And I think it should be noted too that because of those, look who's behind the source of this secret club or group that formed this committee to come up with this data. That data would have to be substantiated. There's no way you're going to go off of that particular group's findings and data and not put it to the test of science to substantiate that data is reproducible and a truth in and of itself.
And the fact is that we will welcome, as our GA rep said, as the city would say, we welcome any information. We just don't want to walk down the road blindly without seeing it.
If I may, last time I was at this microphone, or perhaps the time before that, I think emoting along with Jessica Weston in saying goodbye, I offered a primal sob for the lack of newspaper coverage that we may get in her absence. And stepping back from that, you know, our American democracy is a four-legged stool, and we've always been missing that fourth leg, which is the estate that we call the free press. Especially here. It's as informal as most other things in Ridgecrest. God bless them. We love them all. And I was probably awkward in expressing myself back then. But in issues like this, there should be an investigative reporter from one of our newspapers shuttling back and forth, talking to the parties that generally don't have a venue to talk to each other, and gathering data and reporting on the facts. Perhaps that'll happen. It's a full-time and very kinetic position. It's somebody that has to have years of experience in this issue, just this one issue. And there are others. There's a hospital issue. That fourth estate would offer a link in communications that right now is desperately needed. That's what I was referring to last time. I'm glad to hold my breath and see what comes out of it, because, you know, the office over there isn't exactly empty, as I'm told. Good luck.
Okay, any other council comments?
I do have one question, Mayor. Councilman Heyman, you mentioned that if we get the report, it has to be validated. So who will validate the report?
I have no
Is there
idea. I
any
guess
government?
I have no idea who would be, you know, tasked with, you know, as an independent evaluator of it. But that would be something, we will get to that point down the road. That's just my own opinion. I'm not saying that's
So
a
there is no
GA.
government agency that needs to validate or?
I don't know. That's a good question, and I'm sure that will be brought up and looked at, when the time's right.
Well, legally, we have a mechanism in the state of California through SIGMAs that, the Groundwater Authority is there for a reason. The Groundwater Authority is not going away. It will not go away any time soon. So in my mind, just following the train of legal thought, the Groundwater Authority is the one to validate or substantiate that.
I would say it would be our water resource manager that would look at it. They would include it in the report. There would be the ability to provide public information back and forth, which would include the Water District and Mojave Pistachio, who are the primary architects of the new data, that ultimately would have to be approved by DWR as the update of the 5-year plan of the groundwater sustainability plan. So ultimately, the ultimate arbitrator on that would be DWR, and that'd have to be based upon some level of information.
Well, and a good thing that I saw happen during the meeting was that the Water District manager said he wanted to be a part of the TAC again. At least he expressed that during the meeting. I think that's a good thing. It was brought up a few times. While we can be, our opinions can be adverse to each other, and legally, our trajectories are, adverse to each other. This community, I've been in this community for a while. Scott, I know you have. Solomon, Eric's been here for a while. Right? I'm not going anywhere. None of us are going anywhere. I don't think the people, on the board of the Water District are going anywhere either. And I think that, there was a point, like we all have to live with each other in the future. That was a good point to be made. So the only reason I bring that up is that not us, but all of us collectively need to make sure we're doing all this right. And that Groundwater Authority is not going anywhere. That was made very clear by the state. I remember being on the call I was watching via Zoom. They call in, talk to Mick Gleason. Mick Gleason asked them point blank, what if the Groundwater Authority dissolved? They would say, easy, we're gonna come in, we're gonna put everything the way we think it should be, and then we're gonna appoint another Groundwater Authority. So you guys need to figure it out. So I would imagine that, because I know I heard Mike Neal say it, that the Water District should leave the Groundwater Authority. It's not in their best interest. It's not in ours either. And most of their people they represent, they're supposed to be taking care of the future of this community. Those are our constituents too. We all care deeply. So things like this, this headline, I hope it's true. I really do, because if it doesn't play out and it doesn't look as good as we hope it does, all of us are hoping. Every single one of us are hoping. Nobody wants to see a cost for no reason. If it doesn't play out that way, that's awful for the community and the taxpayers and the fees they're paying.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, before we go to item number 4, we're going to need to pull item number 4 and then bring it back to council in the near future. That's okay. We found out we had we had passed our threshold for the bid process. We need to put it out to formal bid. And so we're going to have to go back and retool it, put it out to bid, and then bring it back to council. So we need to pull item 4.
So understand item number 4, which I'm just going to announce for the record, is being pulled.
Yes.
But just so the public knows, what we were going to be discussing was working towards getting some repairs done on the splash pad for the drainage issues and some of the pest control issues that have been raised at the splash pad. Although we cannot do it this evening, it will be returned at a future date, and we still are working diligently towards next season, making sure that we have those repairs completed. That's all I wanted to share with the public.
Yeah, I do believe we should be able to get the splash pad fixed before we have the opportunity. to open it.
Agreed. And we're pulling it at this time
Correct, yes.
due to procedural needs. Okay, so item number 4 is being pulled from the agenda. That'll move us on to item number 5. This is a resolution to amend a professional services agreement with Willdan Engineering for $32,000 to provide additional design for the extended project limits for the Bowman Channel between South Norma and South China Lake Boulevard. Mr. Reed.
Good evening, council. First of all, apologize for the screw up on item 4. That's my doing. Item 5, so as you guys all know, we had Hurricane Hillary. I told you we were going to be doing a lot of different drainage infrastructure projects. This is the second one of those two. During the storm, we saw numerous overtopping of the southern wall of the Bowman Channel due to how runoff flows in that area. And since we are currently working on a project to redo the full Bowman Channel, we felt it was in the city and the public's best interest to protect those improvements by installing curb and gutter along that southern side or the northern side of the asphalt portion of Bowman from Norma to China Lake Boulevard, and also put in down drains where the existing check dams will be constructed. So that way we can utilize the riprap that will already be installed with the contract. In my staff report, I provided you with a list of changes. There's numerous. There's, like I said, curb and gutter. It'll widen the road a little bit. If I can find the item, it would be great. So curb and gutter, as I said, along the southern frontage, pave out and widening of Bowman. We'll add class 2 road base and backfill from the top of the curb to the top of the channel, which will alleviate weeds and debris catching. We'll remove and replace the full surrounding fence because it is completely deteriorated and falling down in numerous places. Install storm drain inlets along the curb face so we can alleviate any and all erosion. Expansion of the Norma intersection and changing of the location of some of the curb returns so that way the sidewalk works in all those locations. A right turn lane on eastbound Bowman to southbound Norma. So when we had our latest round of intersections that we looked at, the only intersection we have currently, you have 5 levels of service that we analyze them at: A, B, C, D, and E. Obviously, A being the best, E being the worst. This is the only intersection in our city that is a level of service B at the moment. So while we're doing this work, we felt it was prudent to widen it a little bit and get that one into the level of service A category. And then we have some additional hydrology calculations and things like that that are going to go into sizing the storm drain inlets, and then obviously the installation of these storm drain inlets. So with that, I'm open for any questions as it relates to this project.
No
Travis?
questions? No questions for me.
I noticed some activity on the east end of the Bowman Channel as I drove over here. Is what's taking place there strictly cosmetic, or are you offering some gravitational hydraulic potential energy release across Sunland?
Strictly maintenance. We're trying to prep and get some of the majority of the weeds out of there and get some of the debris out of there. And we're also going to start doing some west of this project location too, just for maintenance, for flow, for the Bowman Channel, and for mitigation should we have a wet winter like the Farmer's Almanac is calling for.
Indeed. It looks pretty. Thanks.
I have no questions. This is continuing. This is called taking a situation and learning from it and making the best that you can of it. And if we're making improvements, hopefully we don't have another Hillary in 2024, but who knows? Huh? Yeah. Hey, we did well for Hillary, so. Yeah. Is there any public comment in regards to this matter? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council. If there's no other council comments, do I have a motion for approval of item number 5 as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, item number 6 is a resolution of the Ridgecrest City Council approving increased appropriations for intersection reconstruction on La Mirage Street and Palm Drive for $100,532.44 as submitted by Lyle's Utility Construction, LLC, and allocate funds for a 10% contingency, the maximum total of up to $110,585.68, and authorize the city manager, Ronald Strand, to execute all agreements. Mr. Reed.
So this is us piggybacking on another public agency that utilizes public funds and meets prevailing wage requirements. So PG&E is doing a full reconstruction. They've actually completed the majority of the reconstruction side of it. They're doing the remediation work on things they had to remove right now. And the intersection of La Mirage and Palm is absolutely atrocious. The cross gutters are so old and deteriorated. There is concrete poking out of them, and that's the whole center of that intersection is cracked, deteriorated, very, very, very ill writing. It just needs repairs badly. So our standard currently is anytime you plow through a cross gutter, you plow through an intersection, you've got to replace half of that concrete improvement. So what we're looking to do is piggyback off somebody who's already gone through the competitive bid process, got what we feel as staff members is a very fair and competitive price, and complete some restoration of another area of a street that's already going to have a portion of it be worked on. So inside our staff report, you can see a map. It's about 140 feet along one side of the intersection, the full intersection, and then 160 feet, I believe, to the north. And it's a full width reconstruction. We're gonna remove all the interior concrete that's there and pave it back to our new standard. We're gonna take some crown out of it, make it a little more drivable, and make that road a little bit smoother for passing pedestrians, for passing cars, for the whole population over there in general. So with that, if anybody has any questions, I'm open for questions.
So just to put in perspective, how much are we saving by being able to tag along?
So by being to tag along, we're saving on design, you're saving on bidding, you're saving time, which I would say is the big factor here too. And to put it into a ballpark number, I would say we're saving somewhere around $60,000 for this area of improvement.
Thank you. Any other council comments?
Mr. Reed, did we have competitive bids for this, or is it a single source bid?
So this is not even, so we didn't go through the competitive bid process with them. So this is PG&E's contractor that went through the competitive bid process to get the project. And since they are doing repairs in the area, we are piggybacking off their competitive bid process to just complete a full restoration of that area of street that they're already going to be restoring, I would say roughly about 36% to 40% of it. So we're just trying to save the cost of doing it at a later date, doing it and having to go through the process of drawing a set of plans, drawing this, where we can just do this off of something that's already been competitively bid.
Sure.
We did confirm with the contractor numerous times to make sure that everybody is paid prevailing wage. I'm going to have them submit certified payrolls to myself too, so I can verify that it meets all of our requirements as well.
Sure. And it's a mistake, I think. And the resolution should say approved and adopted this 20th day of December instead of 15th day of March.
Yeah. Yes, 100% should. I mean, we can make it retroactive, right?
You can do that.
That would be a different budget year, and I think that she would be very unhappy with you.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
Very unhappy with you.
Martin, I got you to perk up. Perfect.
Any other staff comments? All right, any other council comments? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So this is coming out of 2024 Measure V?
Correct.
Okay, because I know that you drew down Measure V funds pretty far.
So this is 23-24 Measure V funds. It's the same budget year. Obviously, I'm asking for an additional allocation. We did an extensive look at where we were at with current projects, so we know what we have remaining in the pot of funds. And both Cherie, Ron, and I came to the conclusion that this is, I'm not saying use the word acceptable, but it is a good use of the funds, saves us money, and I think it's worth its weight to piggyback off this.
Okay, cool. Cherie seems to be giving the north and south. Okay, I'm good then. Yeah.
Any other council comments? Seeing none, is there any public comment? Any public comment on the phone? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council. Without any further council comments, is there a motion for the approval of item number 6 as presented?
So moved.
With the amendments to the resolution as.
With the corrections.
With the corrections.
Make sure that
as-
it's not
as,
retroactive.
Detailed by Councilman Rajaratnam.
Second.
I have a motion and second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, item number 7. So I don't know how to read this resolution. So can I read the one from the supplemental agenda, please? Okay, thank you. That will make me feel much better. Item number 7 is a resolution to accept the base bid Schedule A and B as submitted by Griffith Company, allocate Clean California American Rescue Plan Act and unallocated general fund reserves for the base bid and up to $372,415.50 for a 10% construction contingency, a maximum contract total of up to $4,096,570.50 to award a construction contract to Griffith Company to construct the Clean California Leroy Jackson Park Improvement Project and amend a professional services agreement with Wood End Engineering in the amount of $130,000 and authorize the city manager, Ron Strand, to execute the contract and amendment. Mr. Strand, Mr. Reed, sorry.
So this is our Clean California project. As council knows, from all the staff meetings and talking about ARPA funds, that project went from a scope that was about this big to a scope that I can only use one arm to describe how big it is. We put it out once. We did not get any bids back in time. We did receive one, but we had to reject it because it was turned in after the deadline. We put it out again, and bids came back I would say reasonably close to what the engineer's estimate was, with the exception of some of the electrical items. As you guys all know, we recently did an electrical project over there for the shade structures, and we have numerous supply chain issues with anything electrical. The electrical portion did come back well over what we thought it was going to. But in light of where the engineer's estimate was and the numbers that we received, and in looking at the 3 comparative bids, the lowest bid was almost $500,000 less than the next bidder. In my experience, every time we've held a bid back and we've gone back out, it ends up costing us more money. So in trying to figure out how we were going to fund this, I had numerous conversations with Ron and with Cherie about what we felt was the best way to fund this. So in light of the grant deadline, we really don't have the luxury of time anymore. The grant deadline for Clean California is the end of June. With all the scope we added, this is a 120-day working contract. It's going to take every bit of that for us to get the electrical components and get them installed, which the tennis court lights is a huge portion of this contract. As we all know, coming down the road, we have a tennis court resurfacing project. It makes it pretty hard to resurface a tennis court if we don't have the lights already put in, right? We don't want to go cut our brand new resurfacing and to put lights in. So with that, staff kind of pushed forward and decided that we felt that it's in the best interest of the city to get this done. We're asking that we can fund it with obviously all of the Clean California grant, of which we've received about $478,000 in advanced funding. If we decide not to go through with this project and we don't meet the grant deadline, we will have to pay all that money back to the state. The other thing we're asking you to do is to reallocate pretty much every remaining ARPA dollar and every ARPA dollar that has not been spent yet to this project. What staff feels is the best use of this money, and the reason why we're doing this is because that also has a time deadline. By putting all of our ARPA projects in one pot, we can clear the books on both Clean California and both all the ARPA fundings with one project. Now, we've asked in there, as you can see, that we reallocate the money that we had for the tennis court resurfacing. Staff is still going to pursue resurfacing that court. We're going to go out to bid for it. We're hoping here first of the year. I'm soliciting 2 other companies right now that have other resurfacing technology, and we're actually looking at doing some of that work in-house. We're just going to fund that from a different fund. So regardless of whether we pass this tonight or we don't pass this tonight, Staff is still going to bring the tennis court resurfacing back to you. We're just going to fund it differently. We're not going to use ARPA funds to do the work. Additionally, on top of that, to fund the contingency, we're asking for an allocation from our general fund reserve. So we've got 3 total funding sources on this project. The Clean California funds, which is 100% grant funding. There's no portion of ours, the 1.863 million, of which if we don't do it, we'll have to pay back the 478,000 we already took. And I did not print the new staff report, so I don't remember what the exact total of ARPA is. I grabbed the one that just had the didn't have the supplemental in it. But I broke it all down in the staff report for you.
Unallocated is 977,000.
Yeah, so we're moving the unallocated for ARPA is 977. Thank you. Sorry, I grabbed the wrong one off my desk.
977, that's unallocated.
Yeah, so we had.
Been sitting on our bottom, on that bottom one.
Correct. So we had $977,735 that had not been allocated to a project yet. So we're asking for that fund. We're using all of what's been funded for the bathroom allocation, of which we've already signed up to spend, I forget what the exact total is for what the bathroom cost was.
About 347.
347.
Yeah, correct.
So we want the rest of that to do the installation and do all the other work. We're asking to reallocate the tennis court funding to this project, and we're asking for all the remainder funds from the partition project at Kerr-McGee Center. So the total ARPA funds that we're asking is for about 2.65 million. And then we're asking for 338,000 out of our general fund reserve. And now what that is going to cover is if we have any overages or we have anything that was unknown at the time of bidding. As you guys all know, we put contingencies on a lot of projects. Leroy Jackson is, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this is the oldest park in our park network. The first part of it was first owned by the county and then was deeded over to the city. So there are going to be some unknowns. There are going to be things when we get into electrical panels that we think are going to be good. And as soon as you touch the wires, all the coating is going to break off. So we're going to end up having wires that we're going to have to repull. I'm sure we're going to run into something underground that we're going to have to deal with. So I am asking for a 10% contingency. As you guys know, like when we did our coating project for seal coating for chip sealing, I only asked for a 5. There's not very many unknowns when you're just putting a coating over the top of something and you're not putting a bucket in the ground. But we will do our diligence to make sure that we don't eat into that as much as possible and try to get this done in the grant allotment. And I don't think we're going to have any trouble spending the grant funds in time. It's going to be the other ARPA side that I think might push out a little bit past the deadline. In regards to the Willdan contract, when we originally put this out via RFP for design and construction management and construction engineering support inspection, the assumption based on the project side was a 50 working day contract. Well, we've now gone to 120 days. So that inspection need has over doubled. So that's why we're asking for additional funds for the construction engineering side and for the grant management side. I really wish I had the staff to do all this in-house, but we just don't have the staff. And I think we all know how busy we've been lately. But at some point, I mean, we've done numerous analysis and talked about hiring full-time staff, but at some point, we're not going to have quite as many projects to do. And it seems kind of silly to hire somebody that we're not going to know if we're going to have work for to do it in-house. While we have it, yeah, you pay a premium, but at least we only have to pay it while we're using it, right? So with that, I'm open for any questions. Oh, one other quick item. The other thing we are asking is we have 2 or 3 projects that are getting close to finishing up in ARPA. We'd like the finance director to have authorization that when these projects finish up, whatever is remaining of those ARPA funds. So if we had an ARPA project that costs $120,000, we got it done for $100,000. We would like council authorization for Cherie to push that money into this project, thus limiting the amount that we're taking from our general fund reserve. And with that, I'm open for any questions.
I got one. That's really, so I trust and have learned to trust over the, since you have become the public works director, your analysis, your financial analysis. I think you've been prudent with tax dollars, which I appreciate. I watch how you cut and you save wherever you can. I think you have a pretty good idea in your head for not just finances, but labor hours, what that looks like, what it's like to run a construction site. So the analysis you gave us, I think we're all, I can't speak for everybody else, I can speak for myself. I think I am willing to say, yeah, I'm okay with this. But what is your risk analysis on being able to meet the two deadlines that you just stated? Because of your stated issues, with not having enough people, with you guys are spread thin, the city staff is working full tilt.
So I would say that I think our risk analysis is, I know we can complete this. And the reason why I say I know we can complete this is because what's covered under the grant application for the general scope of work is concrete improvements, is planting, is hydro seeding, it's the lights at the tennis courts. Well, the lights at the tennis courts alone are $800,000. So we've got a lot of big ticket items that I think we can get the grant funding spent in the allotted amount of time. So as long as we've spent the grant funding and that we've requested reimbursement and we can close the grant out, we can meet that guideline. Plus, there are multiple agencies that have had the same issue with Clean California that we have. They've got projects out there that they can't get anybody to bid on. So my gut, and I think, Ron, if I'm speaking out of turn here for you, your gut is telling you that I think that deadline's going to get extended. And the one thing that we're really going to be pushing up towards that June 30th date is when we take delivery of the bathroom. But that's not tied to the grant. That's ARPA funds.
Thank you.
And I also think we have an experience with the contractor that has the lowest bid, and we respect their work, and I think if they say they can get it in on time, I think we can hope that they get in on time. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of unknowns when they dig into the ground and stuff, but I think we got a good opportunity to get it done.
I would 100% agree with that. It's we're getting the same foreman, same project manager, same oversight that we had on Ward and that we had on both Measure V projects. It's the same crew. We're getting the same inspector from Wildan that's done a great job for us. And they really work well as a tandem. And the only time I have to be out there is when we have things we have to solve and figure out, hey, it's not going to work per plan. What are we going to do to fix this? So I think the team that is going to be there that they've promised us we are going to get, I absolutely think can finish this in time.
Yeah, and one of the issues about the cost of the project, one, we did expand the project. We did put in more work. We put in curbing for the fields. We got the path. You got the bathroom, the snack bar. There's a lot of things that are going to be in that park that are going to beautify it and make it more functional. And we all know that when we initially accepted the Clean California grant, we've had a significant amount of issues with supply chain, labor costs, inflation. So what we've experienced here with Clean California, frankly, was not a shock because, we've all been tracking how the inflationary costs have been. We'd have liked to have, had some ARPA money left over for it. I mean, I'm glad that we were funding these projects and holding back as we were ticking them off the list. And in this case here, that excess ARPA that we hadn't allocated because we knew some months ago that we were going to have the potential of this issue, I'm glad we did. And I think we can get this project in with the use of very little general fund allocation.
Again, I know there's going to be some more questions. Can you just go over the resurfacing again so I can understand what you're describing as it relates to resurfacing? This does not include the resurfacing, or this does?
No. So originally we were going to include the resurfacing as part of the Clean California bid package. After talking to the one resurfacer that we had decided to go for. When I say resurfacing, I'm talking about the actual playing surface on top. Mm-hmm. When we talked to them about the condition that the courts are in now, the problems with concrete cracks, with heaving and sinking, with popping from freeze thaw like that, it was going to take a specialized contractor to do the structure underneath the resurfacing of the court. So we decided at that time that it would better suit us to separate the bid, have the tennis court be a completely separate bid, so we could get more targeted contractors, less landscape work, more of pure concrete, and put an allotment in for the court resurfacing. When we did that, we felt we had a better chance of getting more bids.
but
We did
we
not
just-
get any.
Yeah.
So now we're looking at other alternatives, different types of court systems, so we can maybe try to utilize and get some of the people that work in Fresno that are used to working with Seal Masters court system, or working with, there's another court company that I can't, PR&P tennis courts and pickleball courts or something like that. So we've got meetings set up with both of them to figure out how we can better tailor our specs, or what we can look at doing for the structure underneath the tennis court before we resurface it.
So I'm completely respectful of that. I understand the reasoning now. But let's make sure that we've at least addressed two things that instantly come to my head, which is, number one, beautiful, ton of work. There's still 25 cracks in the tennis court when we're done. That, we do half the job, we don't finish the job mentality.
Right.
What is the timeline or commitment to getting the resurfacing, on task and on point to be completed? And where's that getting paid for when we've burned through ARPA? And I'm just making sure that we've at least addressed it fairly, because one of my concerns is that we do a project and then the second stage, we've had this conversation, it falls through the wayside. I understand your reasoning for getting the things done, but let's hear what the plan is
So
for those.
our plan, after numerous discussions, is we're looking at, obviously, like I said, different methods to fix the structure underneath to where we can guarantee that we get a competitive bid process. I'm assuming within the next 2 weeks, so by the second week of January, the project will be out to bid.
Okay.
With whatever our chosen method of fixing the surface is, whether or not we have to do it in-house to get it to where it's just where all we're doing is putting the surfacing down, or we have it bid out to do this, the actual structural side and the surfacing.
Okay.
When we bring it to council, we are going to ask that we can use unallocated general fund reserves to fund that roughly $600,000 worth of the project.
Okay. And it would be reasonable for this council to expect to see that resolution before the end of the third quarter of our fiscal year? Is that fair?
I would say it would be reasonable to see, with us having the bid out by mid-January, you've got a 3 to 4 week bid process. I would say it would be reasonable to see it either the last meeting in February or the first meeting in March.
Well, the end of our third quarter is March 31.
Okay, yes.
So I'm
then,
saying
yeah.
it's reasonable for this council to expect that the resurfacing will at least have been presented, and so that there's not going to be a year timeframe between
No.
when this project is being done and when the complete project is completed.
And one of the other things that I just kind of want to point out is when we did separate this in hopes of getting more competitive bids and more specialized contractors, one of the things that I didn't weigh in my head at that time is the fact that you're going to have one general contractor that's responsible for the lights, and you're going to have another general contractor that's responsible for the resurfacing of the court. Well, if the resurfacing of the court general contractor wants to do it in February, but the general contractor for Clean California can't have the light posts in by February, now
Yeah,
we could incur paying delays to contractor B that's doing the resurfacing. So I actually think by doing this and pushing it out a little bit and letting Clean California getting started, we're saving ourselves the what if that happened? What kind of money is that going to cost us? So. And I truly feel if the tennis court would have been in there, you would not have seen the 3 bids that we got for this project. I think that would have pushed all 3 of those contractors out from doing that because they chose not to bid on that project by itself. So I think you would have had no bids for Clean California, and we would have been coming back to you going, what are we going to do? Because now we don't have enough time to do any of this.
And just, again, I think it's important for public record is, I understand everyone out there and, warm up your dialing fingers, anonymous citizen. I understand that saying this is not costing our city but it still costs the taxpayer, it costs every single one of us in our pocketbook with the inflation from America's Rescue Plan and everything else. But the reality is, from the actual coffers of the city of Ridgecrest, not funding that either has been provided by the state or by the federal government through some other program, AKA Clean California or ARPA, that the total dollars that we are approving through this resolution of general fund dollars, taxpayer dollars actually directly potentially invested is the $338,000, correct?
Correct. The only time we will touch the unallocated general fund reserve is for any overage on the contract.
Contingency. Correct. And I just make sure, again, I understand, like I said, warm your fingers up, that you're going to say it's all taxpayer money. We fully agree with you, but actually out of the locally raised funds paid for by our local citizens into our general fund reserves, we're talking about $335,000 of contingency funding with a potential additional fund needed to complete the tennis courts at a future date. I just want to make sure that everyone that's been clear for the record. So.
With the caveat that if we have any other remaining ARPA, we're going to use that and not touch a portion of that.
And Martin, I'm correct. Yeah, City Attorney, if you don't mind chiming in here, I don't know that we can say that. Can we? Because it's not part of the resolution.
It is part of the resolution.
Oh, it is?
Whereas.
It's a whereas. Well, then I will shut up and apologize for not fully reading every whereas. So when it gets to like 19 of them, I forget. So, and I believe there is at least that many on this sheet.
There's quite a few for to meet
So
all the
I
requirements.
will officially be quiet. Any other council comments?
Creative. I like it.
It was a lot of writing in a late night, but I got it done.
Yeah, good presentation. And tagging on to what Mayor has said, that general fund amount which you are talking about would probably be used only for the contingencies in case we need to use, right?
Will only be used if we get into contingency
For the
funds.
contingent, okay. One of the whereas
Board.
on second page, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It says the total amount of ARPA needed is 2649846, of which 1,009,170 was previously authorized by the council. What is that? It was not discussed anywhere in the staff report.
So that is the ones for, if you look at, in my staff report, if you look at where we had funds that were already authorized for the use for this project, you have the amendment number 1 for Wildan, which is when we added the design services for the bathroom, the walking path, those extensions, that 18,710, and the $990,460 for the bathroom was already allocated to this project. Or allocated to be spent for a portion of work that we have tied to this project is probably a better way to say it. So that's where you get the 1,009,000 and change. It's those two items that were already allocated.
Okay. So
I
that
probably should have broke that down a little better.
bathroom allocation is part of this project?
Correct. So the
Okay.
bathroom allocation, we're doing all the work around the bathroom with this project. And then, obviously, when you look at my, the restroom concession building, which we've already purchased, so the 365,000 of it's already been spent, but the total that's already been authorized for it is that 1,009,000. I should have spelled that out. I'm sorry, Solomon.
No, that's okay. Thanks for the clarification. That's all I have, sir.
I have no other council comments. I'll ask if there's any public comment. Okay, no public comment from the floor. Any public comment on the phones? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and bring it back to council. Any further council comments, or do I have a motion to approve item number 7 as presented?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second.
Please vote. Motion carries unanimously.
Leroy Jackson project coming summer 2024.
So I'm going to put out an NTP tomorrow, and I'm hoping we can get contracts signed and have Griffith out there by the first of the year.
Excellent. Okay, next item is item number 8.
Thanks, Mr. Reed.
This is the proposed approval for a new salary schedule for the police chief position. City Manager Strand.
Yes, sir. As you know, we're in the process of recruiting a new permanent police chief. Chief Scott will be leaving us in February of '24. So in reviewing the salary schedule as part of the recruitment process, it's fairly apparent that we're below market rate for cities our size and even the area. So I found a way of converting an admin leave benefit that's afforded to that position and converting it directly into salary at no additional cost to the city. So what I'm recommending is that we adjust the chief salary schedule from 151 or 157 to 171, top step. We're in the process of creating the flyer now with the consultant, so this would allow us to publish that position at a rate that is somewhat comparable to other police departments within our area. Now, we do have next budget cycle, we do plan on doing another salary survey, which will include all employees and also this position to take a closer look at where we're at. But I think this will put us in a position where we're competitive enough to hopefully recruit some qualified people for the position.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and be the first one to jump off the bridge then.
Oh, good.
I highly respect that you're finding a way to do it without cost increase to the city. But I still question whether it's enough. And let me explain what I mean by that is we know that the leadership that a police chief has to provide to the department, to the community, has been a critical resource and is an absolute critical resource. And when I look at, the comparison which you gave us, which is fantastic, Kyle City will still be above us.
Correct.
I don't know about me, but I go if that's sorry, that's the first one I'm going to go to, and I'm going to go with our median income, the type of community we have. Are we trying to sell ourselves shorter than what we are? And I'm concerned that if the top step Kern County Sheriff is 226 and Carl City's 180, I'm perfectly fine approving this and putting it out there, but are we still not really making sure that we are recruiting the best for our community because we're trying to still play the cheap game? Sorry, it's how I perceive things.
I'm not trying to play the.
I know you're not. I'm
not trying to play the cheap game. I'm trying to.
But I'm being frank.
I'm trying to balance things. I mean, obviously, I have other department heads, and
right.
the plan would be next year is to do away with the admin leave pay during the next budget cycle, and then increase the salaries of my other department heads, including some of my mid-managers who get admin leave pay, because most everybody cashes it out except for maybe one or two people,
right.
Just because there's really not enough time for people to take the time off that it gets. So the only drawback to that is that if we raise the chief's salary above that, then I have other people like, my finance director, public works director position. Now
You're saying you're going to be out of balance.
I'm going to be out of balance, and I think this gets us close enough, and I know that we are looking at getting back to COLAs that we haven't had in a decade plus or longer. So really what I'm trying to do is come to you with the no-cost
increase.
It doesn't create other issues within
Budgets,
the city and the budget. It's a little bit cleaner this way, and then it gives us the ability to make these fold the admin leave into pay. And then we can then take a look at, hey, where are we at with salaries, and then make the adjustments from there. So you're right, I am trying to balance.
And I respect that. That's one of the things that I know that I believe this entire diocese has always respected, for whatever, hot fingers out there.
I will
likes
argue
to
that if
say,
I mean,
we know that we're always trying to balance the best budget for what our city resources are. And I respect that completely. And like I said, you have my full support. I just know that, recruiting talent has changed, and I know that there's a lot, and especially the way society has treated our law enforcement people over the last 3-4 years has created some substantial changes in what expectations are and what availability is. And if there's a great captain out there at some city, especially Portland, Seattle, and you really dislike it, we have an incredible rural community that would love to have talented officers that know how to lead, not like you're up there, but in different ways. But the fact is that I know it's not going to be easy to recruit, and I just want to make sure that it was talked, because I don't know if other council members feel the same way, but whatever it takes to make sure that we have the best possible people, especially in such a critical role as our chief, to make sure that we've done that is my concern.
I do believe that, even with our officers, I know we've given them a bump, and I think there needs to be an effort, and we do have Measure V, and there is a purpose for Measure V. One of that is to stay, at a sufficient level to manage crime in our community. I know we're going to have to look at where our officer salaries are at. I know that there have been a few departments in our intermediate area that have given some raises, so I know we have to be looking at that here fairly soon. I know that Sheree and I are coming back to council here shortly to address a medical payment issue that we're going to address in January. So I think what we're trying to do is put us in a position where we can really assess where we're at, do the salary survey again, and then hopefully get on track to where we never get behind like we have again in the past, and really, compensate our people what should be appropriate for our area and the type of work that they do.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
No, it's a delicate balance. I can see what you're trying to do. I mean, you brought up Measure V, and I think it's important because the public's not always tracking. I mean, Measure V pays for over half of our police force as it is. And I think that what that says is this community comes out and overwhelmingly supports law enforcement, and I think that's a good thing. This community, one thing that I've learned over the last couple of years is that nobody has a better relationship with the community than our police officers, especially the folks that police interact with a different, on a daily basis, on a continual basis. There's a different group of people that are interacting with constant, and you know who they call continually? These police that they know. They work through some of the hardest days of their lives, and I think that this isn't me just being a cheerleader for the police. This is me saying that our police at Ridgecrest PD does a heck of a job, and you're doing the best job you can with balancing out how we're gonna keep, retain, attract. So I don't envy your job, but I do support your move in this case.
Any other council comments?
I think it's a good start. It's an increase, and I have great trust in City Manager Strand and Sheree's finance discretions, and so I'm with it 100%. I'd like to see us, agree with Mayor Bruin wholeheartedly. I'd like to see us, over time, keep working and chipping away at the different aspects of the city employees' pay rolls, and but I also like the fact that we're coming up, because I know that some of these places aren't as nice of a place to work as Ridgecrest. I'm kind of prejudiced, and so if we can get up there, we can recruit somebody that gets a nicer place to work and not quite as disparaged on the finance end of it. So I think it's really good to see this.
Yeah, Scott, something else I wanted to add is that adjusting it like this, it gives, because one thing that Ridgecrest PD has is a lot of homegrown officers, people from Ridgecrest, and I think that's what makes our police department a little bit different than other areas. Mayor Brewer, I know you were bringing up anecdotally about, about Seattle and Plainville, and I know it was tongue in cheek.
Yes.
But the difference in a lot of those larger communities is their PDs they're not homegrown. They're not within the community. Kids going to school with our kids. You're not meeting with the coffee shop. It's not all the same. They're almost outsourced, And so while in this particular case, it's nice to make that number more marketable, looking for a chief to take over for Chief Scott. Wait, Chief Scott, you're still leaving? Okay. It's also one more step towards taking care of the police officers that we do have, and a succession plan. That's something I meant to say earlier. I even had it as a note, and I forgot to say it. Is that we have young sergeants and captains that will eventually move up to that position. So I think it makes it, gives them something to work towards.
I agree.
One clarification, so Chief Scott will be retiring February 21st, and then we are expecting to have new hire by April, so there is a gap where we don't have a chief, or can we adjust the?
Correct. We will have an acting chief at that point in time, so one of the two captains will be acting for that period of time.
No, we cannot adjust Chief Scott's hours.
No, the problem with,
state law.
the problem with that is that Chief Scott can only work, 960 hours. Anything after that, it affects his retirement. And I'm very appreciative, as well as the people in the police department, that Mike has come in for the time that he has. I'm just thankful for that. And so I'm hoping that we can find somebody that can come in the department. It'll be either from within or from the outside to lead the department.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Okay. Hearing no other council comments, is there any public comment? Seeing no public comment, nothing on the phones, we'll bring it back to council. Do I have a motion to approve item number 8 as presented?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, next on our agenda is our committee reports. Interestingly enough, only one committee found it fit to meet this month. Just kidding, just having fun with that, because everyone's been busy with our holiday schedules. Finance met on the 12th. The numbers, people always like to look at the numbers.
It's dedication.
Yeah, we, there's not a whole lot to report beyond things that you've already heard at this meeting, which was that in order to successfully complete the Clean California project, that future ARPA projects would most likely have to be deferred into it, and that's understood. So, there were a couple other projects that we know have been circling around that we've been talking about, and that we, I want to remind every member of the public that, America's Rescue Plan, the dollars for this arrived in, if my memory serves me correctly, it's February of 22, is that roughly, or was it August of 21? I can't remember which one of the 5,000 different pieces of COVID regulation, legislation that was passed to give money away. But it was one of those, and we got it, and we're now 3 years, almost 3 years into allocating ARPA, getting ARPA done. And the critical importance here is that we don't want to miss the opportunity for it. And financially, the city has honestly, going all the way back to, in my opinion, going as far back as even 2016, this city has operated on a focus to restore our general fund. And that's what I want to kind of reiterate out of finances. We have been, for the last, so this is my 3-year anniversary was last week of sitting on this council. And I know that I've sat on finance that entire time, and our entire focus has always been on ensuring that our general fund was restored to the levels that we had the fiscal security that we lacked following the fallout in 2011. And then we continued to struggle through 2016, 17, 18, 19. And then here comes the series of interesting events, right? And it starts on July 4th, 2019. And, you know, I guess we're finally reaching the end of it. You know, we probably reached the end of it last year with you know, finally COVID coming to a conclusion, sort of. The simple fact is that financially we've been able to do a lot with our general fund in terms of restoration, that we are in a very healthy position, that it's responsible. I guess this is the message I'm trying to convey to the public from Finance Committee is it has now reached the point where our responsible investment of general funds is the right action for the citizens of the community. Where the saving of general funds was the right action for the citizens of the community throughout the time frame we had to restore and ensure that we were fiscally sound. We've completed that process, that now making some decisions about spending certain amounts of general fund money in our parks and in our police force or in our IT systems or in public works, wherever we're choosing to make those investments, it's an appropriate time now for us to begin making those types of investments. I think we have lived in a cloud of, we can't spend any general fund money for over a decade. And the skies have cleared, and we need to understand that that means it's time for us to start slowly beginning to reinvest these things. And so I'm very proud to see that we are beginning to do that. And that's why I reiterated during that discussion that, you know, when we talk about how money is spent and how finances work, it's very, very important that the public understands that we have worked diligently to restore our general fund, that when we're talking about allocating $335,000 as contingency money from the general fund, that's still one of the first times you're seeing us actually tap into general fund for projects in a long, long time. And I think that's what I would reiterate. Some other things from the finance, just to reiterate, our tax measure dollars, our income streams are all relatively performing at or better than what we expect, as well as our continued performance for our investment portfolio and what we've been able to do on that front. We are well positioned fiscally for our next several years. We were able to submit FEMA reimbursement for Hurricane Hillary. We are doing well from a fiscal perspective with the limited resources we have, but it is contingent on the support our citizens are giving us through Measure V and Measure P without question. I'll let you add anything.
No, I think you covered it very well. I just want to add, I think the mayor was being very humble in his descriptive state of the financials of the city. I've been on the Finance Committee for 5 years now, and I will say that Cherie and City Manager Ron and staff have done a phenomenal job, and that Mayor Brune has been since coming on, has been a major asset to the Finance Committee, and a lot of the things that he discussed, he's been instrumental in directly, and I want to thank him for his hard work in the Finance Department. So, and it's everything he said, and I've said before, we've been on a upward positive financial journey here, and I think you can, you know, again, even though we sit up here and do our part, it comes right back down to Cherie and City Manager Strand and the staff that they have working with them. So we appreciate it greatly.
Are there any questions from Council on Finance? Okay. All other meetings were either rescheduled or canceled. Other committees, boards, or commissions?
No, but I think it should be noted that the Infrastructure Committee will likely be canceled, as well as the next Economic Development Committee meeting.
Okay. I don't have any others. City Manager report?
Yes, I got 4 items tonight. First, our wastewater facility. We just received the plans. They're at 60% design. We plan to meet, Mr. Reed and I plan to meet with our consultants middle of January to review those plans. Once those are reviewed, then we'll be moving onwards to the 90% design, hoping that we will be at full design by third or fourth quarter of '24. And that'll give us the opportunity then to be able to pick a time when we can put it out to bid. Now, we did have one set of disappointing news. We'd plan on applying for a Defense Community Infrastructure Program grant. The problem with that is that the Biden administration had put a Build America, Buy America clause as a condition of that grant. Now, if we pursued it, we'd be pursuing funding that would be equivalent to about 6% of the cost to build a new plant. And we'd estimated that with the effects of the Buy America, Build America, we would see a 15 to 20% increase in the cost of the plant. So in other words, it would cost us money to get money. And so we're not going to pursue that. We're still going to pursue the state revolving fund loan, because that could be a forgivable loan if we get it. And if that's the case and it's greater than the effects of BABA, then we'll pursue it. So good news is the plant's moving right along. Bad news is some of the funding that we thought we were going to be able to pursue just not going to happen. We reached out to Old CC and actually spoke with the colonel that's in charge of the program and was inquiring about, we call it the BABA waiver. They weren't interested in it. A significant amount of the SCADA equipment, the electrical equipment, is only produced in a couple of countries. One is Israel, the other is Germany, not America. There is a supply issue with the steel for the piping. So after consulting with our two consultants, one consulting firm that's doing the architecture and the other that's guiding us, it just wasn't worth pursuing. But the good news is that we are coming to council in January to set up bonding for the pool. Those plans are continuing to progress. We will be meeting with our consultants probably the first or middle part of January to go over the plans again. We're close to 75% design on that, so it is still looking very good that we'll be able to put that out to bid, accept the bid, get the bonding that we need, and get it under construction at summertime. That's still our desired result. Next item is Placer AI. I know that Mr. Neal had spoken about that. He did do a public records request. I did submit to him all the reports that we'd submitted to outside agencies. There's two people in the city right now that run those reports. It's Megan McKenzie and I. And one of the things I really kind of wanted to clarify is that there is no way as staff that we would run reports for the political benefit of anybody on the council. I would just make that clear right now. That accusation would never come true, and I'll be frank with you, I don't think that data would even benefit a campaign. But even if it didn't or did, we would not engage in that. The people that we were working with and providing this information to, they're the people who we work with all the time on economic development. We work with Night Off Balsam Street, the Visitors Bureau. So they're the people who have the same interest and desire as we do, is to worry about the economic health of our community and our quality of life. So, like I said, I just want to make sure that I made that very clear, that I would never share any information for anybody's political benefit on this council or who's running for council. And I think that Mr. Neal's comment is obviously predictable in that regard, but we would never go there. The last is the tree lighting. What I'm going to say is that I'm going to let the mayor discuss that, but I wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to say how proud and pleased I am with the staff that organized that and put it on. They worked very hard. It was a very great coordinated event between Parks and Rec and my analysts upstairs. This was a great use of the Measure P funds. This was the capstone event. We'd had 4 previous, and this was the most attended. And those of us who went, it was a great event to watch people, especially the kids, having a great time. And I think this is what, if we're going to be helping the base recruit and retain people to work on base, which is our number one employers. If we're going to help the hospital recruit and retain nurses, doctors, and qualified medical staff, these are the things that we have to continue to do. These are the things that we had visioned for Measure P as one of just a small component of what we're using that funding for. But I think this has huge benefits in improving our quality of life. And I'll be honest with you, there really are no other organizations left standing out there that can do this. So I appreciate the community's support in the tax measure for the funding for this. I also appreciate council's courage in helping us pursue this funding so we can work in this direction. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Any future agenda items? Seeing none. Mayor and council comments. We're going to go right to left. We're going to let Mr. Gorman be the kicker-offer.
Oh, I made my comment. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Raymond?
It's been a great year, and it's an honor to sit and work with the council that we currently have, and our city clerk, and our city manager, and our chief, and the city staff. So I've enjoyed it greatly and look forward to 24. And our city attorney. Smiling up there. Thank you, everybody.
It's like 3:30 in the morning there in Poland.
Oh, my goodness.
Is it? Wow.
Well, 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock.
It's 5.
Oh, 5. Okay, never mind.
It's 5 a.m.
It's 5 o'clock. Yeah.
My hat's off to you. Thank you, Martin, for enduring.
I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Councilman Rajaratnam.
Just want to thank city manager and the staff for the hard work, especially the presentation today by Mr. Reed. So you have a lot of details. You were thorough with your presentation. Thank you very much for your involvement in this. And then I want to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all the citizens. Thank you.
Blades.
The same. I want to wish everybody a very happy Christmas. It's been a good year. There's a lot happened. There's a lot changed, and I think that the community and the city it's only getting better. I think that we, especially on this council, I'm pretty proud of you guys because we show a good direction with the way we're going, the things that we're doing, the causes that we champion, and I think that that's all important. And I think when people go to vote, they remember that when they step into the ballot box. They may not remember one meeting or two meetings or little issues, but what they do remember is how their city feels, how their community feels. They remember, what things look like. And they're probably going to hope that, the Carmageddon's over pretty soon. But they're going to remember. But they're going to remember.
Hoping Carmageddon's over soon.
They're going to remember that too. And while I'm talking about the community, I just had the water district in my cul-de-sac, replacing water saddles. Is that what they're called, Travis? Saddles. I mean, issues. These are pipes that hadn't been replaced in 30, 40 years. And I remember I was out there talking to them and we're looking and they're telling me about what they're doing and they're grilling me about trash, which I appreciated. But the moral of the story was that's just the community getting things done. That's because Travis had given them a heads up. They were out there getting those streets done. We brought up a lot of things tonight and in the last few meetings. Tonight we brought up law enforcement. We've brought up the direction of the future of our water in this valley. We, you name it.
Spent money.
Parks. Everything. We've brought up, and the last couple of meetings, it's been a lot. And I just want the community to know that, we're all dedicated. We treat this, at least I do, we treat it like a job. We dive into it. And the city staff that we're working with, I can't give them enough compliments. Every time I get the chance, I'm bragging about the city staff because you guys, you push, you're at full tilt, you work beyond 100% all the time. And we've come to expect it, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blades. So I get to wrap up the last meeting of 2023, and I get to take just a moment, and I promise not to be longer than 25 minutes, so just kidding. Just wanted to make sure I got a chuckle out of somebody. It's been an incredible year for Ridgecrest, and I think we all need to remind ourselves of the little things that recognize the incredible things that are starting to happen in this community. And I'm going to focus that on an event and on repercussions and how we come forward. And that event was Hurricane Hillary. Okay? And so I want everyone to go back to August 20th of this year and August 19th, and as we were lining up for sandbags along the road, and as we were talking amongst our neighbors and our friends, and you know what the messages were? The messages were, Ridgecrest, make sure to check on your neighbor. Be sure to check on your family. If somebody needs some extra help, give them that extra help. Take that extra moment, do that extra step. That's what Ridgecrest always has been. And for me, that is what Ridgecrest always will be, is it's not just about a town that's adjacent to a military base or a town that's in rural California. It's about a town of people that all tend to come together and work together, especially when there's an opportunity to communicate and understand. And I think that's what we've done this year and what we've been doing in the past years. We've been changing the narrative from a lack of communication or understanding. We certainly have some people that continue to struggle with their understanding. But we certainly have a whole bunch of other people that understand what we're trying to do. And it's people like Mr. Reed, who I still believe is an unheralded hero to this community in many ways. And that was on August 20th, and I'm going to reiterate the story again because he just recently came into that finance meeting. He says, hey, we fixed Gold Canyon. And I went, great. And nobody knows why Gold Canyon was broken. I can ask 100 people in this town, and they'll go, I don't know. It just broke. It was during the rain. It broke. I couldn't drive on it. I couldn't get in and out of the school. It was frustrating. Why'd I have to drive around? But then if you ask and you say a moment, and you say, well, did you know there was a new school being built right over there? And during the middle of that flood storm, that school was going to get wiped out in floodwaters? And one person's decision and recognition within his department and with the coordination of great leadership around him, from our city manager to our department heads, made the decision to break a road and probably saved our school district $1.5 million in one decision. But do you know why we were able to make that decision? Because there was communication. There was communication amongst staff and council. There's communication amongst council and citizens. There's communications amongst citizens and citizens. We're talking as a community together because we're coming together as a community. And that started with Night on Balsam back in February. And it really started last November when we all agreed that the best way we push Ridgecrest forward is through passing Measure B. And as we start 2024, we're probably going to be facing some of those same decisions again. And I know what's going to happen is this community is going to come together once again because they've seen now what happens when we get together and we work together. We have events like Night on Balsam and Night Off Balsam. And all of those events lead up to the tree lighting. And I too want to reiterate the thanks to our city staff and to the analysts and to Jen Ricketts and Isabel Medina who were running around like crazy people getting the Christmas cheer in full force around here. And then I show up and we have 5,000 citizens out there singing, enjoying train rides, seeing Santa, talking, having a cookie. But you know what? At the end of the day, I went to Facebook at the end of that night, and you know what I wanted to see? I was just curious what was going to be the comment that I heard. And the best comment I heard has made me feel like a kid again. What better compliment could you offer a community than to say that coming together made you reminded you of what it felt like to be young and to be inspired and to be part of something? And we're bringing our community together to be part of something. And that part of something is a better Ridgecrest for our future. In 2024, we're going to continue our work on our parks. We're going to continue our work on our roads. We're going to continue our work on our infrastructure. We're going to continue to make sure that we're building the best possible Ridgecrest for you, the citizens. And we're going to need your trust and continued support that we're pushing the right direction, because I really think we are. Because then in 25, we still got wastewater and a pool and even more things still to come. And now we just last week made the decision to send the request for the land swap. People go, why are you dealing with a land swap all of a sudden? because we're constantly working for your benefit. It's not just about what's in front of you today, but about what's ahead of us a year from now, 3 years from now, and 10 years from now. We want Ridgecrest to be continuing to be that gem that we all love, where we have a 5-minute commute. And I understand it's frustrating to drive around a detour, but just remind yourself you could be stuck on the 10 freeway. It's a fact. I understand it's a little inconvenient when a water line breaks or when this happens, but how fast does somebody get out there and attend to it? And ask yourself, would you have the same level of service somewhere else? And all of this ties back to appreciation. On Saturday, for the 3rd year, I sat out at our local cemetery with my Cub Scouts, with the Navy, and with our community. Gold Star families, Blue Star families, veterans, Salvation Army. And we laid the wreaths once again on all of those service members who are buried in that cemetery. And that is what's so wonderful about the holiday season. It's a time to remember. It's a time to appreciate. It's a time to love what you've been surrounded with and the people that you're surrounded with. And most importantly, it's a time to say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever religion you are, we celebrate you, we celebrate who you are. But most importantly, thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for our city staff. Thank you for our council. And thank you to Ridgecrest for making this an incredible holiday season. We look forward to another wonderful one at the end of an incredible year in 2024. And with that, I wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas.